emergency podcast, kind of. Nick Fortes to the IL. The first time on the IL for Nick Fortes. Johnny Pareda is recalled. The Marlins had another catcher they could have recalled. They decided not to. Also, when you talk about Max Meyer, it's time to talk about Max Meyer. He was sent down earlier in the season, struggled in AAA, now back at the big league level, struggling at the big league level. Should we be concerned about Max Meyer and his future as a starter at the big league level? Tons to get into. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at MiamiMarlins_UK. Very tricky times at the moment on Twitter or X if you are based in the UK. People are being arrested at the moment for tweets in the UK. So I have to be careful with any Marlins slander. At any point, there could be a knock on the door from the local officer to take me away. We will see. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. It's the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LOCKEDOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And of course, this is your team every day. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. I'm delighted to welcome on the show All-Star in brackets reserve. All-Star Sean UK Goat Barrett. Bombs, bags, average, OPS, you name it. Sean Barrett does it all. How we doing, brother?
I think there's quite a few exaggerations there, I think.
One or two.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Pete. I had a pretty decent season for myself and a lot of fun.
Underplaying that, mate. You had a stonker. You had a stonker, mate. So I'm starting the campaign right now. We need Sean Barrett starting in the All-Star game. That's what I want to see. And I must say that the clip, the caption that the team put together, I assume the team put it together anyway. They picked the perfect image. Not even Jazz Chisholm Jr. can get away with 6 buttons undone on the jersey. No one can, apart from Sean Barrett. The rug. What was the quote I did see? The rug. I've lost it now. There was some sort of, strap line. I'll remember it. I'll find it in a minute. But anyway, it's good to have you on, mate. And there's tons to get into, of course. Even in August, when the Marlins are in full-blown tank mode, Nick Fortes has just gone to the IL. Max Meyer has had another laborious start, is how I would describe it. Struggling again. Stowers continues to struggle. He's not in the lineup today. Connor Norby continues to struggle at third base down in AAA. Well, he struggles to get any reps at third base in AAA. So there's tons to get into. Let's start with the big news, I guess, for today anyway. Nick Fortes landing on the IL. This is interesting on a few aspects. Let's first talk about what the Marlins are going to lose with Nick Fortes. And I think the one thing that stood out, and me and you mentioned this kind of off air before we hit it, that you'd noticed Nick Fortes had kind of turned a corner recently. It looked like all of a sudden there was some offensive production starting to come from Fortes. So, on the face of it, this isn't a huge blow, clearly because the season's cooked. But actually, Nick Fortes was just about starting to find his groove, it seemed, and maybe, was starting to turn the corner a bit. So a little bit disappointed for Nick, obviously. And, how hot was he, I guess, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's well known for his defense. I mean, that's what he brings to the team. And he's been really good, like top 10 in defensive runs. If you use like the FanGraphs information, which to me was just, it's further cementing his position on the roster. And with Ramirez in the minors at the moment, hopefully he's coming up soon. We know that his defense isn't really there. So he would be a great little mix and match of them both getting playing time. One guy that has got the hits and one guy that has got the defense. Because ultimately, Fortes isn't a fantastic offensive threat. But yeah, looking through the last sort of game logs, you've got multiple hits in in about 10 games over the last 2 weeks. He really
Mm.
did light up the bat. And it's such a shame that as he is starting to heat up, because let's be frank, the offense output from catching in the major league levels isn't that high.
No.
So whilst Fortes' WRC plus of 48 is pretty dismal, this hot streak, which also makes you wonder how low it was before this hot streak, this hot streak could have very easily got him to be a average offensive catcher. And if you put that together with the high level of defense at catcher, you're probably looking at a top 10, top 50, at least top half of the league catcher. Which is something that we just haven't seen from Fortes at the moment. It's only hopefully a small injury, but all small injuries for the Marlins tend to turn into mumps. Hopefully he's back soon. And if it's not, does that speed up the Ramirez opportunity at the major league level? Because the Marlins just going to throw out two catches ultimately that haven't really got much of a chance of a future here.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my first thought, to be honest, Sean. I saw the news break. I had a tennis match, fired up Twitter, of course, on the way home, or just, as I got home, and was like, oh, Nick Fortes the IL, that's disappointing. Then I had the eyes emoji going, thinking, okay, what's the corresponding move? Knowing that Agustin Ramirez is on the 40-man. And so I was thinking, okay, are we going to see Agustin Ramirez? But no, we're not going to see Agustin Ramirez. We're going to see Johnny Pereda coming back up. He's had a couple of little stints this year, kind of linked obviously to the Bethancourt situation. And, Bethancourt maybe, I think, was injured at one point as well. So, we're going to see him again. Surprised or not that they didn't maybe just hit the button on Agustin Ramirez at this point and just kind of get him up and just, let him have a bit of playing time at the big league level at this point?
Not really. He's not really super small sample size, but he's not really hit much in his time inside the Marlins organization.
Oh no!
And he's dealing with one transition already. He's moved from one organization to another, moved across. I'm not sure how far he has actually traveled, but America's a big old country, so I should imagine it wasn't a trip around the shops. So putting that extra hassle of coming up to the major league level, and if it is just for a short period of time, I don't see it being necessary. So Pereira's going to get an opportunity, and it might not look pretty, but it is what it is, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is what it is. And I understand the situation because whilst Agustin Ramirez is already on the 40-man, so you've already consumed a minor league option year, irrespective. So, I guess that's already banked. But also, not having him up, keeps the service time clock down as well. And so that's a big part of this right now is I think as a fan base, we're naturally intrigued to see guys the headline guy of the Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade, Agustin Ramirez, naturally intrigued to see him. That would be exciting at this point of the season. But from a business perspective and seeing what the Marlins did with Max Meyer this specific year, where you're trying to get extra years of control, maybe when the team might be more competitive. This makes sense though, Sean, right? It's one of those tricky situations, I think, for a front office where the right business move, and the Marlins are all about the business, frankly. The right business move is to leave Agustin Ramirez, down in AAA the rest of the way, to be honest, isn't it? I think that is the reality. There's no benefit really for the Marlins to get him pumped up there in August and September and waste service time on a lost situation, right? Yeah,
absolutely. It is a case of the Marlins work within competitive windows. They need to go through rebuilds. They don't need to, but that's the way that they are run by the owner. That is the model. So having him play this year, if it costs you, it's hard to justify when you're thinking about 7 years down the line. But him playing this year isn't worth him not having an extra year in 7 years' time, because that's another year of the window of competitiveness that the Marlins, it's a tight window as it is. Let's not make it any tighter. I wouldn't, as much as I'd like to see him up now and all the young guys up now, just to give the team a bit of a shot on the arm, ultimately, competitively, down the line, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, I mean, it's super small sample size. Clearly, like at the moment, he's played 5 games in Jacksonville. So it's super small sample size. I think he had a hit, maybe a hit and RBI in his first game, maybe his first at bat, if I recall correctly. I forget now, but either way, he's had 21 plate appearances there. Unfortunately, he's hitting 158 at this point, and a slug of 211. So it's not been amazing his first week, I guess, of action. I guess the interesting bit there is obviously he was promoted midway through the year, was absolutely setting AA alight. Was then promoted to AAA within the Yankees organization. And I think it's fair to say struggled a touch there also. And so, he's still a young guy. He's only 22. And so, I know there's a sense that we'd love to see him up, but really what we've seen at AAA, like it's the jump has impacted his production and his level. And I think at the moment he's struggled to find his level at AAA specifically. So, for me, taking away the business side, I actually just look and think, I'm not convinced this guy is actually big league ready at this point, to be honest with you. I don't know. I mean, I haven't got eyeballs on the guy, but I get the sense that, Fortes probably will be back. Pareda, Ali Sanchez, probably those 3 are going to circle around for the rest of this year. And I get the sense that we probably don't see Agustin Ramirez at all in 24, which I don't think is any major big loss. I'd love to see him come up and rake, obviously, and get excited about that. But I think that seems like the most likely outcome for him. Let him settle in. I think you made a great point, Sean. Just let him settle into Jacksonville, new organization. Just let him get in the groove and get going at AAA. What do you make of the difference in numbers there from kind of AA to AAA? Sometimes AA's can be seen as the more competitive league, depending on who you're facing and et cetera, But, what do you make on the kind of significant drop-off, I'd say, going from AA to AAA this year for him specifically?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the numbers, and obviously they drop off, but the walk rate, the strikeout rate, they're both very similar, so there's not really much there to get excited about. I would say that you could argue that it's just BABIP. It was 292 in his time at AA and 247 at AAA. That's 50 points of average. It's just a bit of bad luck. Yeah. I think that's pretty much all it is. He hit for some power and the speed was still there. I mean, across the season at the point, let's remember he's a catcher. He's going to put up a 2020 season, which is, pretty unheard of, especially if you can translate that into the majors. Obviously, Marlins previously had Realmuto, who had 20 stolen base sort of potential. So he is an exciting player. And yeah, you're right. At 22, there's no point, especially as a catcher. Like 22 is super young for a catcher. For him to be having had a season half a season where he's ranked at AA, normally catchers at that age are, at low A ball and still trying to get that bat going. Now, of course, he's a good bat that might not be a catcher, but I think if he can just fake it till he makes it at catcher, he with the offense output that he's got the potential for, you live with that because his bat ultimately for first baseman isn't quite there.
Yeah. Speaking of another guy at the deadline, we're going to get into this after the ad. I want to talk about Max Meyer, but also actually let's continue this conversation because I want to talk about Davison de los Santos specifically. Skip Schumacher was talking about, how he sees maybe the lineup, the roster being utilized the rest of the way. And the sense I got was he likes Jake Berger, I think, more so at first base moving forwards. And I do wonder if there's, Davison de los Santos, there's 0 question marks about his production in many ways at AAA. And the sense is there that maybe he gets an opportunity at third base. So let's talk about that after the ads and also Max Meyer and what was a relatively underwhelming start from Max Meyer. Before we do that, though, guys, let's let you know about our good friends over at PrizePicks. Yes, sir. And guys, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, baby. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, turning $10 into 1,000. And if you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Friday. So mark your calendar for Friday. So all you have to do is download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Welcome back to Locked On Marlins, guys, with me, Peter Pratt, and the UK GOAT All-Star, Sean Barrett. Sean, let's carry on this conversation here. Skip Schumacher talking about, I don't know how detailed this conversation got and the questions got, but the inclination I had was that he feels comfortable with Jake Burger more at first base, which maybe kind of links into Connor Norby. We're going to talk about him as well, but the other wild card here could be that Davison De Los Santos may get a look at third base at the big league level. Burger's been moved around a lot this year anyway, third, first, and DHing, and maybe they'll kind of do something similar with Davison. I'm not sure, but it feels like there's a degree of pressure that will come from that situation that maybe De Los Santos doesn't need. I'd like him just to get up and just concentrate on the bat rather than plonk him at third base at the big league level and see if he can, sink or swim in the infield. I'd rather kind of take that away. It's a bit like Jesus Sanchez a few years ago, where it was like, let's plug him into center field. The next thing is the bat dropped away because he's so busy worrying about center field. So what's your take on that with De Los Santos? Do you see him actually making any starts for the Marlins at third base at all here?
Starts, maybe. Consistent starts, you'd hope not. I mean, he's played at third pretty much everywhere he has at the minors, but he's always been playing significantly more at first base, a handful of DH starts. Look, at this point, we know that Burger is not a great third baseman, but Santos isn't going to be. It's going to be even worse.
No doubt.
It's interesting. So I've just seen one comp where he's been compared to Burger himself.
Yeah,
I would argue, just obviously he's raking in the minor leagues and is actually playing well, but I'd actually argue that he probably has a better bat than Burger as far as potential. So if you're going to put him in first, that was always my but my concerns with Burger moving from third to first. His bat plays far better at third than first, because the expectancy is that your first baseman should be one of your best offensive outputs. So De Los Santos, I think, has that potential. Obviously, the raw power that he has will play in the major leagues and at Lone Depot Park, which is obviously where he's going to play half his games. The contact rate is always going to be the concern, and the fielding as well. So I think, for me, De Los Santos' main role at the major league level should be first base DH, with a few emergency starts at third base if required.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It caught me off guard when I look at like defensive start in his minor league career. He's actually spent more time at third base, and like he's a big dude. Like he's a relative. I mean, Burger's a big dude as well. Like he's kind of prototypical there at third, and so I don't know. Maybe the Marlins do see him getting that opportunity, but it feels a little bit ambitious, to be honest. But we'll see. What do you make of this Connor Norby situation? I know I want to talk about Max Meyer, and we will next. He's the next guy on the slate. But just talking about third baseman as well. What do you make of Connor Norby, sent down to AAA? And the rationale for that was because he was at the big league level at that point. When the trade was made, he was on the big league roster, I think, with the Orioles. And so the Orioles offense and their roster is significantly better, let's say, than the Marlins. So, obviously Stowers came in straight into the lineup. Norby, expecting, okay, maybe Norby's going to get everyday reps. Nope. He's down to AAA. The reason and rationale given by Peter Bendix is we'd like to see him a little bit at third base and get his, infield defense rolling. Colin Orby last week, no time at third base. So caught me off guard a touch. I'm a little surprised that that hasn't happened. Maybe, I mean, who else are they looking at down there? I know Tristan Gray's down there, but I mean, you don't need Tristan Gray taking reps off Colin Norby down at third base. So a little bit puzzling, that one for Norby, that's the rationale given. Or again, are we into service time manipulation here with Norby, where it's like, whenever they say they're working on defense, it means we want them to just go down AAA because we don't want them at the big league level on the service clock. Is that what's really going on here?
Yeah, I mean, there have been far better players and prospects than Colin Norby who have been sent down for a couple of days of seasoning or defensive reps, or working on bunting or whatever is necessary for them to get the necessary days off of the major league roster that they can get that extra year of arbitration. So, I mean, at this point, you've got to start questioning how many more games are going to happen before he actually gets to see a rep at third base. It could be as simple as they're not quite comfortable putting him out in a game yet. That they've seen his warm up, they've seen his practice, and decided his third base reps right now aren't quite good enough to put him in a game, which would make you wonder how far away he is to being a third baseman that they should even bother trying. So if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they actually are working on his third base defense, you've got to start questioning if he's not put in a game anytime soon. Is it that they're lying, or is it that he's just not a third baseman and they should just bring him up and let him play at a more natural position for him?
We'll wait and see on that one. I just found it intriguing that he hasn't taken any reps at all at third base. So one to watch. Now let's get into it. Max Meyer. Feels like we've teased Max Meyer in this conversation about 15 times in this episode. It's a little bit unnecessary teasing. Like everyone's going, Pete, you're going to talk about Max Meyer? Yes, we're going to talk about him now. Sean, I've got to be honest, I've had a few concerns over Max ever since he made his debut, frankly. I watched it. Listen, you know me, I buy with my eyes. I watch with my eyes and I see what I see. And I saw with Max Meyer, what I saw was a slider played, but I had concerns about the rest of the pitches, frankly. And he obviously got hurt and we never got to see how it played out. And then he's having to work his way back and obviously had that stunning start against the Bravos, no doubt about it, and was then sent down because that was the plan. But I've got to be honest, this whole campaign as a body of work, taking away probably that brave start and maybe the one that preceded that, it's been extremely underwhelming from Max Meyer. And I know health is paramount here, but where's your head at with Max Meyer in terms of what his current standing is, what the ceiling could be, and where you eventually seeing this role playing out for him? Is it a starter? Is it a reliever? You know, I think at some point there probably will be a little bit of a debate around that. I don't think it's yet, but where's your head at generally with Max Meyer?
I think you've got to factor in that he is still very young. It's too early. It's definitely too early to say he's a reliever. We've just seen with this trade deadline that relieving pitching is very volatile, and ultimately you sell high and you buy low. The Marlins ultimately aren't going to take a guy like Meyer, who has an opportunity to be a fairly good to average at this point starting pitcher in the major leagues, and turn him into a reliever, because his value would it'd be 10% of what it is as a starter. Yeah. It's just all the same issues that he's always had, and it is that the fastball, despite the velocity, just doesn't miss bats, and his secondary stuff is fantastic, but you can't have that be your only pitch, because major league batters are simply just not going to offer on it, knowing that you've got a hittable fastball. And that is literally what he has. He has a hittable fastball that people are going to wait on. And, if he's not going to miss enough bats, then that's going to lead to a lot more issues. It's a case of the Marlins, again, are just going to have to keep throwing him out there, give him his opportunities, see how he works with that adversity. And then it's off-season, spring training, and continue to work on a young guy who, is is still learning his trade ultimately.
Yeah, no doubt. 88 innings so far, by the way, on the year across both levels. Considering it's 7th of August, so there's many weeks remaining, but where's this innings limit here for Max Meyer? Could it be you get to 100 and that's it? Could it be 2-3 starts and that's it for Max Meyer this year and you just shut him down? Like the Marlins, I know they will have a number on it, particularly in a in a season like this one, rightly so. Where do you see that number being? Do you see Max Meyer calling it, the Marlins calling it a day for Max Meyer earlier than, I guess, the end of the actual natural regular season?
I think so, yeah. I think you're looking at 100, 120. At a certain point, I think they'll play it a little bit by ear. This is the same way as you see young starting pitchers when they first come up to the majors and they start hitting these bigger innings limits. You'll find that you can see a wear down. You can see guys tiring. You can see the velocity go down a little bit. And as soon as that happens, as soon as the Marlins realize that's it, we're now pushing that boundary of what he can physically do. That's when you cut it off. And yeah, they'll probably have a number. I think it will be 120.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever gone. I don't think he's ever gone 120 in any season before. So that would be. I'd probably it may be less than that. I think he's been 111 in 2021 across 22 starts. So yeah, probably somewhere in that range, the 110 to 120, probably Sean, I think is it. And so I mean, how quickly he gets that number from 87 is up to him. But what we've seen recently is a bunch of 4-ish inning starts. It's been underwhelming, frankly. It's been very underwhelming from Max Meyer. A lot of hype, and I think maybe for him, it's just one of those where he had all of the momentum before the injury. It was a lot of buzz rolling for Meyer. He was just dominant in AA, dominant in AAA, and the guy just earned his promotion. And maybe there's lost a bit of momentum. You're out of the game for a year. Maybe you're a bit tentative. I don't know. We'll see. I think this is I think for Max Meyer, actually, knowing what we know about him loosely and what the reports are, that he's a very confident guy. I don't think it's a bad thing to kind of face into a little bit of adversity here. Like, almost a reality check to get the sense of, okay, maybe this is harder than I anticipated. And maybe it helps kind of spur on the next level of development, let's say. Not to say that he isn't like ears open at this point and uncoachable. It's absolutely not what I'm saying. But, with super confident guys, sometimes a little bit of adversity is not a bad thing. And so, we'll see how he develops. I'm closely watching him. Sean, I'm closely watching Edward Cabrera as well, by the way. Very closely watching Edward Cabrera. The man, the myth, the legend, Eddie Cabrera. It just continues on where he has these little runs where he looks dominant, and then often he gets hurt straight after that, and then he comes back, and then it's all the chaos ensues. I don't know from one start to the other what I'm going to get from Eddie Cabrera, but the most recent one was impressive, no doubt. And so, for Eddie Cabrera, he's, I think, on the flip side. I think the Marlins are going to want to see full go from him all the way to the end of the regular season. I think they want to see start after start every 5th day. Let's get a consistent run from Cabrera, right? Because his career has just been so stop-start. And if he does get to the offseason with a full body of work between now and then, how likely do you see it that maybe the Marlins look to move on from Eddie Cabrera this offseason, if indeed he can maybe prove this help? A 2.5-month run, let's say he can turn it on as well. Do you think the Marlins look to move him, or considering the control and the cost and the volatility, they stick with him?
Yeah, I think the control, the cost are the reasons why you keep him, especially if he's starting to sort of grow a little bit. Yeah, you're right. You never know because he's such a wild, quite literally, with his control guy. But two starts in a row, just the 2 walks, more than a K per 9. It's been pretty good for him recently. I think with the way it is with his control, you look at him as being a key piece of your rotation going forwards. Obviously, it depends on where the Marlins are. We're still not quite sure has the window completely shut? Is it still open? What are they going to do with Sandy? What are they going to do with Luzardo? Eddie's another one that's on that list of guys that the Marlins, you're not quite sure what they're going to do, whether they're looking to compete in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But I think they keep hold of him just because he has got that control and he's starting to grow a little bit. And was the other day you said about, I think it was Meyer, that he's got an opportunity now to stake his claim. I'm the man. Eddie might be sat on the bench right now going, no, I'm the man.
I mean, he should be. He should be.
See him pitch like that.
Absolutely. By service time, by age, by everything, Eddie Cabrera absolutely should be stepping up into that role. It's just the consistency is just insane, as in the lack of. Whereas Max Meyer, I think, has total belief in himself. But unfortunately, the stuff isn't quite translating to the big league level at this point. Whereas Eddie Cabrera's stuff is unquestioned. But at times, it looks like he's pitching like he's blindfolded, and you just don't know why. And so, yeah, I mean, let's see. For both of those two guys in particular, Eddie Cabrera, Max Meyer, these are great opportunities for those guys where they are seen as the leaders in the rotation now. And it's very intriguing to see the way that way they take their game, like Sandy did, where Sandy stepped into that role and he took his game to the next level and then to the next one and to the next one. Like, that was Sandy. So I'm very interested to see, like, where a guy steps out of a shadow like these, what can they do? Maybe Eddie Cabrera is that guy. We'll see. Feels like we've had this conversation before. Let's hit the final ad. We're running a little bit long, but I did want to talk about, well, a nugget from yesterday. Otto Lopez in the cleanup spot. I did want to talk about that as well. I did want to talk about Kyle Stowers as well, who continues to struggle a little bit. But before we do that, let's let you know about our good friends over at Liquid IV. Yes, sir. And when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's popsicle firecracker flavor. A surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the number one powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. They've got tons of flavors, guys, and you can blast off with the iconic summer flavor of popsicle firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Check out all of your favorite flavors on their website, including my favorite, of course, pina colada. They've also got lemon and lime, which looks very interesting as well. So no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order on Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Final segment. We're running long, but I've got the all-star in the house, Sean Barrett, and we're talking tons. Even in August, we are going long on our episodes. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. Hope you're enjoying the show, guys. Talk to me then about Otto Lopez hitting cleanup. The Marlins lineup at this point, are they just drawing straws in terms of like who's going to hit where? I mean, I was stunned to see Otto Lopez in the lineup, in the cleanup spot, considering what we've seen from him production-wise, and equally who else was in the lineup that day. I think Kyle Stowers was shunted down to maybe the 8 hole, maybe the 7. I don't know. It was definitely relatively low. I think Pache was hitting ahead of him, which is a little bit of a bad indicator. Maybe they're trying to take the pressure off. I know Stowers out of the lineup today, but Otto Lopez cleanup. This truly is spring training season right now, isn't it?
Yeah, this is peak opportunity when you can get a guy that's hitting 550 OPS in your cleanup spot. How else can you not say no? Like this is just where the Marlins are at the moment. I mean, Otto Lopez at this point he is on that sort of carousel of are they going to get rid of him? It's interesting just because they've given him the opportunity. They've shown that they're willing to walk on a guy. Obviously, Gordon was released or DFA'd or however you want to take it. Otto Lopez might be the next man up or next man down, should I say. But yeah, I think the fact that they're playing people like that in the cleanup spot just tells you where the Marlins are as far as competitive level. they're not losing 21, 22 games on the bounce like the White Sox, but they're still pretty sorry for themselves.
Do you see Otto Lopez on this roster, the big league roster, next year?
I just don't. I don't see how they could justify it. If they are, then we absolutely know where they are heading. As far as you know that Sandy's going in at the deadline, if not before.
Yeah.
They are literally punting on these next couple of years of the Sandy window, and we are fully going for that 2028, 2029 World Series run.
No doubt. There has been a recent roster move I think is interesting from a Marlins perspective, considering the way they've pieced this roster together all season long. They are the Marlins waivers 9, or however we want to phrase it. If there's a waiver claim to be made, they have been interested, no doubt. Cavan Biggio DFA'd by the Dodgers yesterday. Maybe the day before. Maybe I'm a day or two late on that. But either way, he was DFA'd, I believe, probably for the return of Freddie Freeman. Maybe I'm maybe slightly out on that. But nevertheless, he's, when you look at his career WAR, Biggio, 7 WAR career, an OPS plus of 100 nailed on. Hasn't been that this year. He's hitting 197, 5 bombs, OPS plus 79. But Biggio out there, he's 29. The Marlins love a waiver claim. Could you see them, putting something in here for Biggio and scooping him up as well?
I would be quite surprised. I think that, the name value that he has, and
big name.
It is a case of he's been given every opportunity in Toronto. They've tried and they've tried and they've tried, and if they've given up at this point, I just don't see the value there. The Marlins waiver claims at the moment seem to be just relying on guys who can give them innings. Like if Cavan Biggio was to come in and throw a couple of innings in relief, then he's more than welcome. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to be. I mean, the Marlins, they've been fine with relievers, but I'm not convinced they need him. But the interesting part there is he does have a year of control, Biggio. So he's whether you want that year of control and that cost, I guess, is the problem for the Marlins. They're probably not going to take him on at this point, but did notice he was available. Talk to me then, Kyle Stowers. What have you seen from him? Because it's only been a week, clearly, but he's out of the lineup today. It's been a struggle. I mean, my first impressions, I think I shared them on the show. Maybe we spoke about him there. It looked kind of Jesus Sanchez-like in some ways from like 2020, whatever. And I think that's the problem. I think for Stowers, it's just the combination of the age and maybe this obvious hole in the swing. And it gets, it sends a few alarm bells ringing here really about whether there's going to be a legitimate major league stick, an average at best stick. I know it's early, but what's been your takeaways from Stowers so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of, like we spoke about the other day, it is a case of this guy's changing an organization and he's got those holes. And for him, the transition is going to be quite difficult, I think, because you're talking about a reasonably high prospect in a very good organization who are looking right now to be competitive, and he's trying to break down the door and get there. And all of a sudden they give up on him and they trade him to the Marlins as well. That's got to be a bit of a kick in the teeth. So he's now at this point got to try and make it through the rest of the year and at the major league level. And I think the hole in his swing at the moment is there. It's glaring. I mean, we can see it, for Christ's sake. Yeah. So what are Major League Baseball teams advanced pitching scouting doing to him? Yeah. They'll pick him apart. And has he got time like Sanchez had to work through it? He's already 26. It's a bit of a concern, but that's what the Marlins get for trying to bring in as many people as they could. They weren't going for high level prospects; they were going for as many as they could get. Scatter that gun out. So this is what the Marlins got. They've got a lot of projects. They've got a lot of people that are got a couple of holes here and there, whether that's the defense, whether that's their contact rate, whether it's air age. And at least Dale's got a few of those. So they'll work with him in the offseason, and he'll probably get a lot of time in Winter League play. That'll give us something to talk about in the offseason at least.
Oh, baby, we're going to need that. We're going to have the Stowers 40-40 tracker going in Winter League ball. No doubt about it. I think it's funny, isn't it? Because that deal, obviously, you think about it, it was Trevor Rogers, everyone's going fleece job for the Marlins. Connor Norby was the headline, I think. I think that was pretty obvious. And Stowers, no role, wrong age. Like, in the grand scheme, it was probably a throw-in. Like, he was almost probably on the DFA bubble, probably in some ways, within Baltimore, just because they just got so much talent. So, he'll be given an opportunity and be given time. But to your point, like he doesn't have as much time as Sanchez to work it out. So very interesting to see how it goes with that one for sure. We've done 41 minutes, so we better wrap it up there. We've covered everyone, I think. So Sean, the UK GOAT, the All-Star as well. I appreciate you taking the time to join me on today's Locked On Marlins. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. The Marlins are actually playing this evening, and Beozo is going against the Reds. The Reds have absolutely spanked the Marlins in this series. Yes, Jesus Sanchez hit one 480. Yes, Xavier Edwards is on a 23-game on-base streak. But unfortunately, the wins and losses perspective, the Reds are absolutely blasting the Marlins at this point. Unfortunately, they're facing a lefty this evening, Abbott, the lefty. So that fills me with dread. But Beozo going, he'll bring the heat. We'll look forward to recapping today's game tomorrow, and we'll see you then.